All right, welcome. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here today and joining us for this session. As Brianna mentioned, Jan will be joining us kind of over recorded video, but she's available to ask questions throughout the session. I will ask that you post, if you have questions that you'd like to kind of ask during the session, if you could post them to the chat or just wait till the end. We have a lot of content to get through, so I just want to make sure we get through it, and we have set aside time for questions at the end for sure. So the learning outcomes for today, I've listed them here. So high level awareness of Office 365 program of projects. So I will, before I kind of get into the apps, I'm going to talk about Office 365 at the University of Waterloo and what's kind of under this program. And then we'll get into the Office 365 change request process, which is how you can request a new app as well as configuration changes that you think may be helpful. And then we'll also talk about how those requests are handled and kind of what the process is to approve a request. And then we'll share with you some recently enabled apps that were enabled as part of this request process since it started in the fall. And hopefully by the end of this session, you'll also know where to find apps if you haven't already done an exploration of them. And then Jan's section will cover some recent teaching and learning use cases for some 365 apps and some related feedback from instructors. And then we have three demos. Demos is the right word, but three kind of introductions to three different apps. So one is bookings. Lowell Williamson will be doing that. The other one is stream. And that's Cameron McCordic, who is doing that one over a video that I'll share with you. And then Jan has prepared a Teams private channels a video as well that I'll share. And then we'll finish with how you can find out more information. And sorry, my mouse is acting up here, so hopefully things will go all right. And I won't go through the agenda because it's pretty much in sync with the learning objectives. So our Office 365 program of projects includes currently 5 different projects. So the first one listed here is moving to SharePoint Online. So this project will plan an implementation and a migration of our existing SharePoint sites to SharePoint Online or to Microsoft Teams, depending on what is desired or what makes the most sense. There's actually a PDAG this Friday at 9 a.m. If you'd like more information about this project, you can also reach out to me directly. Our current SharePoint environment is going to be unsupported sometime at the end of this year. So that's part of the impetus for this project. But of course, there are many benefits to SharePoint in the cloud, including integration with other Office 365 apps. The next one is migrating to soft phones. So many of you are probably already migrated to Skype for Business from your previous digital or IP phones. And so that is something that is in progress right now. And it's important. An important part of working from home allows you to access your phone essentially from your laptop, your smartphone, or your desktop. The next one is migrating N drives to OneDrive. So in the fall, we did an exploration of the technical process of not only migrating the data, but redirecting the folders that are currently pointing to N drives to OneDrive. And this is being led by each faculty IT group in terms of the changes for the different faculties, but IST will be piloting this in IST in the month of March. Migrating employee emails to Office 365, as most of you know, that was completed last year for pretty much almost everyone, some exceptions, almost everyone on campus, that's student, staff, and faculty. In addition, we migrated the students into our faculty and staff tenants that were kind of all in the same Office 365 space, which does allow lots of collaboration, which I'll mention in a few minutes. And then the last one is the email routing improvements project, which will be addressing some related audit comments as well as replacing Proofpoint anti-malware with Cisco anti-malware. And that second part actually occurred already in January of this year. So some high-level benefits of the program: improved opportunity for instructor-student collaboration. I mentioned that already. So having everyone on the same tenant, using the same apps allows us to collaborate much easier, as well as enhanced productivity and opportunity for collaboration among our employees. So I already mentioned the migration to the same tenant, but also another kind of quick note that some of the apps, including bookings, which we'll be talking about later, do require Office 365 email. So there's that awareness as well, that may be a requirement for the use of some apps. And also having everyone on the same kind of platform also helps for improved support of, of the campus. So having a streamlined IT support is also another benefit. Just a note about continuous improvement. There's definitely no shortage of great ideas coming from campus. So that is the reason in part that we developed this change request process. We wanted to make sure we had a process to enable the campus to let us know if there's something they're needing to use or wanting to try out, but also ensure that we don't have any security concerns or implementing that isn't going to be impacting other Office 365 services or apps. So it was important to have a process that allowed us to do this in a safe, positive way, but also still enable the changes that people want to take advantage of the different features of Office 365. So as I mentioned, there have been some things changed or implemented as a result of this process that started in the fall, and I'll mention some of those. Also related to continuous improvement, there was a survey sent out to approximately 270 instructors last fall who used roster synced teams for their courses, and Jan will talk a little bit about that. And then we're always building our support capabilities within IST. So as we roll out something new, so for example, when we launched Stream, we got together a small group within IST that would kind of encompass or be part of that support model and implemented a process where as tickets come in for that service, they're assigned kind of in a round robin kind of rotated fashion to these individuals. We created a service page and an FAQ, etc. So I'm going to now get into the change request process itself. We do have a change request form that will ask some specific information about what is being requested, including asking for a link to the web page that maybe describes the app or the change that's being requested, the use case for it, if the requester thinks it would be of use to the entire campus or undergrads or instructors, so kind of what the audience is for the app, you know, to their knowledge, best of their knowledge, of course, as well as will it be replacing something already available. So if there's maybe a different app or service on campus that they used to use, but now they want to adopt something new, if they could provide that information. So we will use this information in the approval process. And as I mentioned earlier, Microsoft app requests as well as third-party app requests can be requested in this way, and configuration change requests as well. So this is the high-level process overview. We actually have some principles behind this as well as the process itself. So without getting into too much nitty-gritty, I'm just going to kind of give you some high-level information about what happens when then one of these requests come in. We have an Office 365 Operations Committee, which assesses the use case, the level of interest, like I mentioned earlier, whether it's going to be replacing something that's already in existence, so a duplicate service. We're going to assess if there's some cost implications. And just as a side note, in terms of the governance, we also have an Office 365 steering committee. So in some cases, requests may get escalated to that steering committee if there's a cost associated, for example. If it isn't approved, so maybe it's kind of almost identical to something that already exists, we will reply back to the requester and provide that other option, provide some training or some resources for them to learn about that existing service and see if that will meet their needs. In a lot of cases that is the case, they're just not aware of that existing app or that existing service. So sometimes it's just creating awareness and the request that they put in actually isn't really needed based on what's already available. But we can have a conversation at that point for sure as well. If it is approved at the operations committee level, then it will be passed on to our security group for security review. I have a whole slide about some of the things that they're going to look at from a security perspective. I am not a security expert, so I'll just walk through them quickly, but if you do have questions, I can look into those for you. We do want to make sure that we don't have any privacy issues, any data that's going to be stored on other servers that we're not comfortable with the data being stored. We want to make sure there's encryption and so on. And then there'll be a technical assessment. So in some cases, it's very simple. It's just like turning it on. It's no big deal. In other cases, we may have some configuration to consider, and there maybe needs to be more decisions around that. And again, I have another slide around some of those things. And then we'll consider any support requirements that might exist, and as well as rollout considerations, communications, and so on. And then we would enable it from there. So these are some of the security considerations. Is there a privacy policy for the app that's being requested? Is the app, when it's in use, is it going to be accessing data that it shouldn't really need? And that data that it might be accessing, how and where is that hosted? Is it protected and encrypted and so on? Do they have a policy for data removal if we stop using that app? Are there any published or known security vulnerabilities? Can we access audit logs or other logging if we need to trace activity on the platform? So if there's something that happened that was kind of uncool, can we look into it? And then how it interacts with other existing services, and if that's any concern. And we definitely won't approve it if encryption on the connections is not available. And there's some other detail there. So from the technical perspective, in some cases, it might not be technically possible, so we need to look into that. So for example, bookings, as Lowell will show in a few minutes, is something that's fully available for our employees and for our instructors, our staff, but our license does not allow us to make it fully available for students. So students can use it if it's set up for them to use by a staff member or a faculty member, but they can't kind of have their own booking to allow other people to book them for things. So that's just something that's not technically possible with our license. And then again, assessing impact to other services. It's important to look at, looking at what needs to be configured and how complex that is, if we have decisions to make around that, if we require or would like to build some automation related to that. So when we had a large volume of Microsoft Teams requests, we created a form for that and some automation in the creation of those teams to kind of move things along quicker. And then access considerations. So sometimes these apps are free, sometimes there is a cost. So that's something that needs to be considered. And there may be a reason only to make it available for specific groups. Perhaps if we made it available to the entire campus, it would cause confusion because there's overlap with other services, but maybe it does make sense for one particular group. So there are other technical considerations that we do need to look at. So these are just some examples of some apps and or integrations that were enabled over the past few months. One little note about integrations, if I point to Miro, for example, in this list, what we enabled was the integration of Miro and Teams. We didn't actually enable the use of Miro across campus, for example. So if somebody wants to use Miro, they would have to get access to Miro and get an account. And I believe there's a cost with that. Don't quote me on that, but I believe there is a cost with it. So that is kind of independent, but the integration in Teams is what we enabled. And there's a few others. One more quick note about something called Hallway Hello in there. That's something that was kind of homegrown, built by a group in engineering to increase social engagement between university students. So something that's kind of nice to have during our pandemic and the situation we're in right now. But because that was homegrown, it kind of required a different security review to make sure that it's good. I wouldn't say it's that different from any other app, but that's definitely something we need to look at. And as that app gets developed on campus, we will, and we have already, kind of loop back with that group and find out what's changed and see if we need to do an additional security review based on the changes. So if you haven't explored any apps so far, you can explore them through Teams or through portal.office.com. So this image just shows you, you would click on the ellipses within Microsoft Teams, and then you would see this little pop-up come up, and you can click on more apps to browse, or you can actually type in the name of the app if you know what you're looking for. And then portal.office.com, if you're logging in through your web browser, you can just click on that little waffle menu in the top left. And then again, look for the app in the list there, or click on all apps to browse through the full list of apps. So now I'm going to pass it over to Jan. We have a little audio file here. So Brianna, just let me know if for some reason it's too quiet or if you can't hear this.
The current winter 2021 term to supplement the 2,000 plus courses delivering course content through our LMS, Waterloo Learn. While the usage spans all faculties, the largest number of roster sync teams are from the Faculty of Arts, and that seems to be consistent across both terms. The number doesn't include course sites that were requested through our Teams request form. An instructor would then provide a join code to the students, either by email or posting it in a companion learn course, and the students would then be responsible for joining the Teams site. So when we look at those numbers, we recognize that it might be a little bit larger than those numbers that we're reporting. Currently, we are running a couple of classroom team pilots to determine whether the additional functionality beyond the roster synced standard teams would work well in a higher education environment. So some of the functionality would be something like a classroom notebook. There's an area for storing some grades, and you can provide assignment details. So we've contacted other institutions to see how they're making out with classroom team pilots, and it sounds like their progress aligns with ours. So most institutions right now are using standard teams. So how does one go about requesting a roster synced team? The process for requesting a roster synced standard team requires that a term of offer learn shell exists, and through that course there is a course widget, and the instructor would click on that and it takes them to a request an MS team button. The request generates a team with a title that matches that of the Learn course, and this is for easy referencing, and it sets the roster sync date to match the start date set in the Learn course. So by default, the start date is set for the first day of classes, but a later or earlier start date can be requested. And so the roster synced team can be created as early as the Learn shell, which is 7 weeks prior to the upcoming term. So that gives you some time to do some preparation. And what happens is that start date determines when the roster sync will occur. So when students will be given access to that roster sync team. So you can be working away, uploading videos and doing your preparation in that team. And the start date for the Learn course and the start date for the team will be on the same day. So they gain access to both things at the same time. So it does give you some preparation time when the students don't have access to either the Learn course or to the team space. Now, since the roster data is being pulled from Grouper and not from Learn, it doesn't know about the groups manually created in Learn or the lecture and tutorial sections loaded into Learn to initially create the roster from Quest. So unfortunately, that information isn't transferred into your roster synced team. So once we had some experience working with roster synced teams, thought it would be a good idea to survey our instructors. So we surveyed the fall 2020 term instructors, and there were 278 unique instructors, and we wanted to get a sense of what O365 apps they were being used for their teaching requirements and what level of satisfaction such apps were providing. So what we discovered is that the use of roster sync teams spanned all 5 faculties, and both at the graduate and undergraduate levels, and we got a 25% return rate from those surveys. So it was a good return rate. We were really pleased. In general, we received very positive feedback about the use of Teams for delivering teaching and learning, and it's figuring into our plans for the future use of O365 apps in teaching and learning. So just a few things that the instructors identified. Video delivery and streaming. So the use of Stream and the ability to prevent downloading of videos was highlighted as a particularly pleasing feature of using Teams. Narrated PowerPoints, group work, usually in the form of private chats, and I'll be talking a little bit about one instructor in the Faculty of Arts that used private chats extensively and very successfully. And then document sharing, so via OneDrive or putting a document up on Teams so students could collaborate for project collaboration, and the final submission to a Learn Dropbox. So often what would happen is students would do their group work in Teams, and then they would put the final submission in a Learn Dropbox just for convenience and to get it into the gradebook, and then also for office hours. So instructors used Teams meetings, or they also use the Bookings app. So lots of use of O365 apps, and the instructors are really driving a lot of our apps requests. So, all right. Well, thank you. Now I'm going to pass it on.
All right. Thank you, Jan. And this second slide here is related to what Jan was saying near the end of her section there. So, Brianna, can you see the demo of 3 apps slide?
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thank you. So I'm actually going to get out of the PowerPoint presentation in a second. The first 2 demos are recorded in stream. So the first one being Jan's, the MS Teams and private channels, and the second one being stream camera McCordic's video. And after I show both of those, then I'll transfer things over to Lowell and come back into this presentation to show everyone bookings.
Hi everyone, I'm Jan Willwerth and I'm presenting on behalf of Jeff Malik, the instructor for ABRUS 400 that was taught in the fall of 2020 and is a good example of where an instructor took advantage of private channels for group work.
So a little bit about ABRUS 400. There were 205 students registered for the course. Jeff created a Learn survey to identify in which time zones the students lived, and that resulted in 2 teams from China. So we certainly had students stretched across the globe. The course is designed so that 65% of the assessment for the course is tied to group work. And when the course was taught face-to-face, he often relied on Google Hangouts as a place for students to work. The issue with that is that he would have to get the students to provide access to him so he could get a sense of how much group work was going on within that space. So it was essential for Jeff to find a tool that could provide flexible, collaborative, and presentation workspace away from the other groups that would be easy for the students to use. And because they were simulating board meetings and decision-making processes, these were replicated by each group. So each group was essentially doing sort of the same assignment and then presented to the instructor and their group members. It was also important that this group space sort of be private from the rest of their peers. So he decided that what he wanted to do was create private channels. And so he had to request 2 roster sync teams because only 30 private channels can be created per team, and he determined that he needed 45 of them with approximately 5 members each. And while it took a better part of the day to manually create those channels, other groups were created in Learn to take advantage of the automated randomly populated groups feature. But unfortunately, there isn't an integration between Learn and MS Teams to automatically create those channels. So he had to do those manually. He also used Teams for a couple of other things. He shared a coaching schedule, which was a living document, so to the files area of the team. And he had 30-minute time slots to meet with the instructor. So these coaching sessions were designed so that students could ask questions, they could make sure that they were on the right track, and so forth. What he found really surprising and pleasing was that all 45 members selected a time on the class schedule and ensured that there were lots of selections for times that would cover the students in other time zones. He could tell if a group was actually meeting because there was a video icon next to the private channel. So that meant that if he went into one of his roster sync teams, he would see the private channels listed, and beside them there would be a video icon if they were meeting at that time. And sometimes the instructor would be invited to join them. It was extremely successful, and he plans to execute the course this way in the future, regardless of our return to on-campus instruction policies. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how you go about creating a private channel. So the first thing that you do is you go to your team, and you'll notice that there's ellipses, so 3 dots. And when you click on those, you get a pop-up menu. And in that pop-up menu, the second item is Add Channel. Once you've added the channel, this details box comes up, and you provide the channel name. Now I gave it the name Group 1, but you could provide a channel name that was maybe more descriptive if it turned out that a group was doing something about a particular topic, or maybe a channel name was for a particular week within your course, and you could provide a description if you wish to do so. There are two settings. There's the standard setting and the privacy setting. The standard channel is anybody can access that channel and participate. A private channel is restricted just to the members you're adding to that channel. And once you are completed, you just click on Add. And then you go through and you add the members to your Group 1 channel in this particular case, or whatever name you provided to that channel. And when you are completed with adding the members, you just click on Done. And then you can decide on whether or not you want to receive the channel notifications. So for example, if there's any postings or activity within that channel, you can decide that you want to receive those notifications.
I'm now going to share Cameron's video next.
My name is Cameron McCordic. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Environment, Enterprise and Development at the University of Waterloo, and I was asked to give a presentation today on setting permission settings for Microsoft Stream videos. Now, in the fall semester when I was teaching, I was trying to host some videos on Microsoft Stream that I wanted to share with students in my class, but because of the content of those videos, I really didn't want everyone in the organization to view the videos, only the students enrolled in the class. This can be a problem when you have copyrighted content or when you have content that the students themselves have provided and it would be inappropriate for you to share them with everyone at the university. So the way to get around this is to go into the permission settings for the videos and then identify which individuals specifically you would like to share those videos with. Now, for any of us who have taught large courses, this can be incredibly time consuming. There's a number of students enrolled in the course, and so going through each video and identifying the specific students that can view the video can be quite time intensive. Now, the great workaround for this problem is to enroll the students in a Microsoft team and then add that team to the permission settings for the exact videos, and this speeds up the process incredibly and also is a great way of ensuring that students enrolled in the course can view the video but no one else within the organization. So that's the process that I'm going to work through today, and so hopefully you find this helpful. I definitely was very glad to find the solution for the courses that I teach. So thanks so much for joining me on this. All right, so let's go ahead and go into Microsoft Stream, and as you can see, I've got a number of videos listed here for some of the courses that I teach. And so the way that we're going to change the permission settings is we're going to go over into the settings, and to open up the settings for the video, we're just going to select this pencil icon here. And so I can input a number of metadata that I want to use for the video. But then here under permission settings, I can actually deselect this box here about allowing everyone in the company to view the video. And then what I'm going to do is go to the Share With drop-down menu and then select My Groups. And this is the way that I can actually identify the Microsoft team that I would like to share the video with. So in this case, I'm going to look for a class called InDev 604, and then I'll search for that group, and then I've identified the group, so I select the group, and now I'm given the option of either making that group an owner of the video or if I would just like to display the video for them. In this case, I would only like to display the video. And then I will select Apply, and this is important because we don't want those students to be able to change the content of the video or edit the video in any way. So then I'll go ahead and select Apply. Okay, all right, I'm just going to pause that. Okay, so now that I've set the permission settings, let's say that I want to share that video with my course. I would then go down to Share under the video, and then I can go to Embed. So then I have my embed link with those options there, and I can click on Copy. I'll close that down. Now I'll go to my course, and what I'm going to do is go to Upload or Create, and then I'm going to go to Video or Audio. I'll then copy and paste the embed link and give it a title like Test Title 1. And then down below, I'm given a preview of what the video will look like. And so I can actually see what they're going to see. And then I'm going to go ahead and just click on save. And now I can see what they would actually see in the embed link here. Now it's important to actually note here that in order for students to access this content, they're going to need a number of instructions. In particular, they need to be reminded that they will need to log into their University of Waterloo Office 365 account through the portal link, plug in their name, username, and password, and then sign in order to view these videos. Okay, so that's the process of adding a Microsoft Team to the permission settings for any individual video. I hope this was helpful to you. I was very glad to discover this function because it allowed me to share copyrighted content as well as content that I only had permission to share with students. So copyrighted content where I had agreements that would allow me to share them with my class and no one else, or content that the students themselves had created and had only given permissions for me to share with the rest of the class. Thanks so much for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.
All right, so I'm going to pass things over to Lowell.
So with bookings, it provides a simple way to allow users to book appointments for individuals, teams, or services, and it prevents you from having to go back and forth with those awkward emails trying to negotiate times. We can customize appointment details, timeframes, make it easy for both the host and the participants. It integrates properly and effectively with your calendar within Outlook. And this is available to full-time employees with Office 365 email. And it works, as Lisa mentioned earlier, with the students as well. They can't set things up, but they can book staff and faculty who have Office 365 accounts. If we could go to the next slide, please. So in the Faculty of Health, I'm one of the IT specialists in the faculty, and we have been promoting and using this in various ways over the past few months. Currently, our academic advisors are using bookings to book student appointments instead of a homegrown kind of outsourced services that have been used in the various departments. What they do is they send out a link and students can find a time that is convenient for them, and it books the advisors and themselves to arrange a meeting. And how that looks and how that's done is dependent on the settings that you put into the system. So in health computing, I'll give you some examples of what we do. We have various services like Windows 10 upgrades, data recovery, Mac updates, just book a meeting for general consulting, or an upgrade to Office 365 from 2016. With the graphic on the right-hand side, you'll see that when there's a globe and a little person there beside the eye, which is for more information, the globe icon means that there's a MS Teams link directly associated with that booking as well. So you make the booking and it brings up Teams and you can connect and do the tasks that you need to. All this is available through portal.office.com, and it's linked to your Outlook calendar. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in upcoming slides. So as we move forward, the bookings page, you can set up specific tasks, like I said. The scheduling policy is dynamic, and you can set up time increments of 20 minutes, 40 minutes, half hour, 2 hours, depending on the task that you're trying to accomplish during the booking. You can also set up minimum and maximum lead times. So it's not like someone can come in and book you, say, 2 minutes before a certain time. You can have it set up that by default, I believe it's 4 days or 4 hours lead time, and for minimum, and that is done in hours, and the maximum lead time is done in days. So we have that set to 4 hours minimum, 90 days maximum. The nice thing is when the booking is completed, you get email notification. It's not only you as the service provider who gets the email notification, but the person doing the booking gets it as well, and it's confirmation of the service that they are asking for. And you can customize that message that gets sent back to them with links or with information that you wish for them to complete in advance of their scheduled time. You can set up business hours, that's by default, but you can also have it linked to your Outlook calendar as well. However, you have to go in and switch it, your calendar in Outlook, so that my organization can view when I'm busy, and that's captured there on the bottom of the slide as well. That's a little got you that needs to be done before any of this works. So setting up the services, you can list and describe the service details, similar to what I did explain with regard to the services offered by Health Computing. You can add the online meeting. It's not required, but if you do it, it creates the MS Team links. And you can set up the reminder emails and notify both the provider and the requester. And you can also set up the duration and buffering your time. So you can make it so that no one can book you an hour and a half before or an hour after. This way that you have proper lead time to complete the task if it's something significant, or conversely, if it's something that may take a long time, like an upgrade that may or may not go as smoothly as planned, you can build in that buffer time so that you're not stacked back to back for meetings. And that's good to preserve our time and to ensure that we give good service if something does go wrong, so you're not rushed. So booking a time online, like I said, negotiating times became easier. There's no email back or forth. So you have a URL that takes the client to a page similar to what you see on the left. They select the service. Then they'll see below that a calendar. So as you can see on this, March 4th, for the general computing consult service, there's one time available on March 4th, and it's at 10:15. One thing I neglected to mention was that you can set up staff for this as well, so that if there are multiple people who can provide the service, you can set them up as staff, and the system is smart enough to figure out who is available at what time, and then assign a person to the task that may not be you. And it provides more flexibility and greater options for the times that are available. You can also set it up that you may not want to offer all these services any given day. So for instance, the data recovery, I've blocked off certain days. I only allow Tuesdays and Wednesdays for that to be available to people. Because of the nature of the job itself. And of course, it helps plan your day and keeps you nicely organized. So the user can change the booking, and that is set up by default. They have that option. They can reschedule. You can turn that off if you wish, but it's nice to give control to the person you're working with in case there's issues at hand. And it will allow you to not have to go back and forth with further negotiations of when and where you might want to meet, or when and how you might want to meet. And it creates the email and calendar invites for both the service provider and for the person you're helping out. So it is an automated process. The Outlook integration is great. You can see on the left that it creates an email with the customer info, the name of the service, the price, which is free, which you'll have to set up when you're setting up services, and the additional information. In this case, I have the person requesting the data recovery fill out a form, so that I have some more, a Microsoft form, of course, fill out some more information so that I know what I'm dealing with before the actual appointment takes place. And then you can see the booking that occurs, the email that the recipient will get, and gives them some options, and it's clear as to what's taking place.
All right,
So
thank you. Oh, sorry, Lowell.
I noticed there are some questions in the chat. If we want to deal with them later, or
I've just had a couple more slides, so why don't I finish,
okay,
and then we'll get to the questions. So the last few slides really are just kind of where you can go for some more information. So the Office 365 website is there. It talks about generally Office 365 on campus, as well as the program that I mentioned at the beginning and the projects within that program. In IST's knowledge base, we have a whole section for Office 365. So I've included that link if you're learning for or looking for more kind of how-to information related to Teams. You can see bookings is there, OneDrive, email, OneNote, etc. And that continues to be built out. So if there's something you're looking for that's not there, let us know and we'll likely add it. And in this more information slide, I've kind of relisted some of the sites I've already listed before, but as well, all of you are already familiar, I'm sure, with the remote teaching website, the Keep Learning website. It has links from there to tools and technologies for teaching and learning. And also to learn more about some of these apps, of course, Microsoft has great documentation, but we also have ITPD courses. And on that course brochure page, we have links to other training, lynda.com, our course notes that might be of interest. And what we'll be adding soon is something called Microsoft Learning Pathways, which is kind of a Microsoft built SharePoint, not interactive, but site where you can leverage and search for training materials for specific Office 365 apps. So that will be linked from there soon. And then if you would like to request any training, there's the email address there. And then if you're needing help, direct help, we've got linked to our IST service desk, our IST account reps in both academic support departments and our faculties. And then there is the email address there if you'd like to sync your roster with your Microsoft team. learnhelp@uwaterloo.ca is the place to go. So now we can have questions. So I'm going to get out of the presentation and kind of reconnect with you all. So yeah, so Brianna, do you want to facilitate the questions? Have you been looking?
Yeah, for sure. I've fielded the questions from the beginning, so we can just go in order. I think there's some quick ones. One of the questions were like the first one surrounding Microsoft Teams. Can the restriction of 30 maximum private channels be increased in some way, or is that coming directly from Microsoft?
I'm fairly certain it's directly from Microsoft. Jan, do you know?
Oh, I'll have to unmute Jan, so give me a second here.
Yep. Yeah.
Jan's calling in via phone, so we just have to unmute her. 1 second. Oh, maybe I can't unmute her.
Oh
no. We can get back to you with that question. Maybe when the recording's live, we can send around to the class list the answer to that. And in the meantime, we can just skip ahead unless Jan wants to send us a quick email letting us know. But the next question, can you batch create private channels?
Again, I'll have to look into that. That's something that I'm not aware of us doing. Some things are possible with some development in IST. So for example, we automated the creation of Teams channels, of Teams sites. So some things are not available out of the box. They might be available with some development work. So that's something that if there's a real need for that, you could submit a change request form and we could look into that for you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and I think it was called Miro. Does the Miro integrated app have the same limitations as the free version of Miro?
The integration that I mentioned earlier, again, it just integrates it with Teams. So it doesn't add functionality or anything like that. So it's not like it's going to give you more if you have the free version. You're going to get what you've acquired, whether it's the free version or the paid version. The integration just allows you to use it within Teams.
Awesome. Sounds great to me. And folks, as we move through these, feel free to add more into the chat. We're going to get through as many as we can before we wrap up here. But next question in regards to Learn and Microsoft Teams. So a scenario, suppose that there is a particular group G created in Learn, which contains some students. Is it possible to create an MS team with just students from group G enrolled, ignoring all students in the class that do not belong to group G?
I don't know if I completely followed that, but if I understand what is being asked, each Microsoft team has a group associated with it. So if you had separate groups, then you might need two separate teams to get those two separate groups to leverage
And I think that captures it. They're really wondering if, let's say you have a group that's called like Winter 2021 in your Learn course, can you make just a Microsoft team for just those individuals without including some of the other groups that might be in your Learn course?
Yeah, it would have to be manually done, as I understand it, because our roster synced teams will sync with that entire roster. If there's a different section, then it might be possible, a different course section. But if it's totally kind of an instructor created group that's independent of the class enrollment, then it would probably have to be manually done.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, switching over to bookings. Do you know if bookings can be linked to a Learn course calendar? I think Jason sent this. Perhaps Jan will know, but we can't unmute Jan, so we don't know. But maybe through iCloud or some other iCalendar or some other format.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The integration
Jan,
with Learn. So
thanks, Jan. If you have access to email or chat and you want to send me any of your thoughts on these things, I can follow my email here. That's something that I would request, or sorry, I would suggest submitting one of those change requests for, and we can look into it. I'm guessing it's not available out of the box. Whether it's something we can look into is a question. I'm not 100% sure.
For sure, yeah. And again, we can follow up via email as needed as well.
Yeah.
So next question, can this, regarding like the bookings, can this be used by external folks to schedule meetings / bookings with internal people, spaces, or equipment?
In theory, yes, it can be done. I'm not sure what how our tenant for Office 365 is set up, but basically if there's other users who are part of a A3 or A5 license in a tenant outside the university, they should have access to that. You will be prompted to log in, and I think you can use your own credentials at your own institution to get in, but that may or may not be configured on our end as well. Currently, we're investigating that in health computing with regard to a conference we're hosting later this month. So stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with Lowell. I think it's possible, but I don't have the details as well. Yeah.
No worries. And then logistical question about the calendars when you do bookings. How does the time appear to those in a different time zone? Will it be the time in their region? So if you book it at 1 p.m. ET, would it show up at the correct time zone, like let's say out in BC?
Yes.
So everyone's on the same time. Awesome. Good. Scott was wondering, do you have recommendations for using bookings with courses? For instance, for office hours or check-ins with students or groups in a large class with many TAs, should they be independent or perhaps better to add TAs as staff? And can it be integrated in a private channel and still work?
So Scott, yes, I would say this is very similar to what the academic advisors do. So in our faculty, so yes, the TAs would be considered staff. You would add them in, and as long as they keep their calendar up to date and the permissions are set correctly, then yeah, you could integrate that and use that as a way to book TAs for office hours and that. As for it being put into a private channel, that's more of a Teams question that I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I'd be curious about what the use case would be, like what needs to be put into the private channel.
Meetings with groups, like student. The use case would be like student groups, like the example that Jan was talking about with for Jeff Malik, 45 different student groups. And then the the instructor or TA needs to go in and like potentially meet with that group or have a check-in with that particular group and potentially have a meeting that may be recorded that is in their private channel.
Yeah, Lowell, you can chime in, but I think that if the booking is done whereby it includes the instructor, then the meeting would occur in Teams and you could record the meeting, but it wouldn't be affiliated with the channel. So out of the box, I would say no, I don't think so.
I think Lisa's right on that.
Okay, thanks, Lowell. And sorry, Scott.
So would it just a follow up quick? Would it work with open channels? Non-private channels?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it would integrate with channels at all. At least, like I said, out of the box, I don't believe so. But it's something we could look into. If it's if it's a use case you have, you could pass that on to us and we could explore it.
Awesome. I just got an email from Jen actually, and she indicated that someone, his name is Paul Dietrich from IST, who developed the roster sync teams, is open to looking at automating some processes. Of course, can't guarantee anything is possible, but I'm going to use his email in the chat if you are interested in connecting with him there, because I mean, this is a learning curve for everyone. We're always open to changing our processes, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I think there was just one more question we can try and squeeze in here. A comment from Anton that I will draw your attention to up there. He is just saying, please consider adding the functionality to sync not only the entire roster, but also with groups in Learn, because that's really helpful for big courses when you have multiple sections. And then Stacy was wondering, do you have a direct link where I can find more information about bookings? Oh, you're already on that. We're good to go. And awesome, just Jason being silly in the chat there. Looks like that's covered all of our questions. So if anyone does have any more, feel free to paste them in there. We can hang around right till the end. But if not, thank you all for coming. And once again, this session is going to be posted on the CT's YouTube channel if you need to go back and reference anything that we covered.